We're turning now to Byzantine art. Very gradually, the Roman Empire is going to separate into Eastern and Western sectors. This is actually going to begin under Diocletian with the Tetrarchy, and that is represented by the statues that you have seen of the tetrarchs. But I think it's Constantine who's actually going to promote and ensure that this happens, and that is going to occur when Constantine founds the city located right here, and this is Istanbul today, known in the past as Constantinople, also known sometimes as Byzantium. Constantine is going to found the city in 330, and with that there's going to be a greater emphasis on the east. The two regions of the Roman Empire are going to gradually become more and more separated, and that will be culturally as well as religiously and artistically. The West, which I'm going to be referring to shortly and taking us to see shortly, is going to be all of, let's go down here, the orange stuff. It's going to be Italy and the area to the north. That is going to gradually come under control of barbarians. Those would be the same groups of people, or at least similar groups of people, who came into the Roman Empire, harassed the Romans on the borders, and ultimately contributed to the downfall of the Roman Empire. Well, these folks will have become Christians and will now be part of the population, essentially, of the Western Roman world. That is going to be a path we follow when we get to the Middle Ages. We are now going to turn, however, to the east. And if you go to my map, you're going to see all of that pinkish territory, and that is all over here. This is the Byzantine Empire, or we might refer to it still perhaps as the Eastern Roman Empire. The dates for this are just for convenience, because the shift in wealth and power to the east is going to be very gradual. We can see with the founding of Constantine's city in 330 that the real emphasis to the east begins, but it's going to take some time for the eastern portion to grow, and I'm going to say surpass the western portion of the Roman Empire. It does have a rather specific end date, which has to tell you that it is conquered, and that's going to be the case in the 15th century. It will fall victim to an army led by a very young Muslim sultan. His name is Mehmed the Conqueror. He's truly amazing, and he's going to lay siege to and ultimately take control of the city we now know as Istanbul, or Constantinople, the capital essentially of the Byzantine Empire. And from that date forward, this territory will be under control of the Muslim world. The eastern portion of the empire incorporates Greece. Let's take a look. It's located right here. And the official language of the Byzantine Empire actually was Greek, which may suggest an underlying division from the very beginning of the two territories that we're now looking at. The art also, as well as the way in which Christianity is approached, is going to be vastly different. The art, much of it that we're going to see that is so famous, was not originally created as a popular style, but that a style for the people, but it was the style of princes, and some of it, like Hagia Sophia, would be a creation under the direction of the emperor himself, and it would have been his church. It tends to be aristocratic, very courtly and sumptuous. That overall, I think we can describe Byzantine art as abstract, very symbolic. It always looks luxurious, and perhaps that's because it is made frequently with mosaics. We've already learned that mosaics are a luxury item. They take a long time to create, and they're very expensive to create. And they end up giving us a rather sumptuous style that lends towards suggesting we're looking at something outside of daily life, outside of the ordinary. Perhaps in the case of a church being decorated, we're looking at something very spiritual. very richly decorated surfaces, and at the end of the day we can say the images tend to be remote and they tend to be mysterious. Because of those qualities, Byzantine art does tend to have a sense of being timeless, of being eternal, not belonging to a particular place at a particular time, but making a rather universal, enduring statement. And we're going to take a look in 1 second at one of these examples. But before we do that, I do want to remember to tell you, in your Smart History videos, they're going to spend a lot of time suggesting that a Byzantine art is created early, middle, and late. We're not going to pay attention to that because this is just an introduction to Byzantine creations, and I would like you to focus instead on the overall qualities of Byzantine style and art. Here's one of our examples for that purpose, and to understand that it was, at least in the beginning, created as the eastern half of the Roman Empire. This is a specifically Byzantine image of Jesus. Its official name is Pantocrator. We're not going to use that. I think we're going to call this manifestation of Jesus as Jesus shown as ruler and judge of heaven and earth. A ruler and a judge of all of us. This is figure 923 in our textbook. It reveals the basic qualities of Byzantine mosaics. It tends to be very spiritual, otherworldly, very, very sumptuous. There is gold among the cubes of creating this mosaic so that it shines in the dome of the church where it's located. The mosaic artists of the Byzantine Empire were known to be the best mosaicists in the world. For that reason, when Muslims go to create their own first architectural monument and they want it decorated with mosaics, we think that they actually hired Christian Byzantine artists in order to get the very best kind of mosaic decoration for their monument. And that monument we'll see later is the Dome of the Rock. The mosaicists in the Byzantine Empire then were good. They were quite capable of giving us very sumptuous images, very carefully laid images, spiritual images. I would say, if you look at the slide on the right, mystical images, and again, this sense of timelessness. This is a depiction we saw very early in the semester when we were talking about elements of style. To our Western eyes, this is an image of Jesus that maybe is a little intimidating. And that almost certainly was intended, particularly by its location. It is in a dome many feet above our head, so that we have this really large image of Jesus as he looks down on us. At the same time, he's carrying the book of rules. That book would be the Bible, in particular, I believe, the New Testament, which would have been the book of the Christians, so that he appears to us as an image of divine power. The church itself, the tendency in the Byzantine world for church design was to create a central dome. And in these central domes, often we have images that look exactly like this, so that it becomes a kind of cosmic image of the universe in a single space. Jesus is the individual, the entity, the divine being who brings order to the cosmos, but he also will hold us accountable for our actions. This mosaic decoration would glitter and glisten because of the gold that was a part of its composition. To the Byzantine eye, an image like this also would have represented an eternal truth, something that was unchanging and that could not be questioned. And that's also reflected in the style of this, a kind of permanence, an eternal quality, and a timelessness, along with the sumptuous nature of the mosaic depiction. This is an example of how skilled the Byzantine mosaicists can actually be, we're looking at another image of Jesus as creator and ruler of everything. The individual depiction, and that's in the center of what you have in the top, again, is Pantocrator, the creator of everything, the judge of everything. He has his hand up in blessing. One hand, it's the right hand blessing, and the left hand is holding the book. In addition, there is also a group of figures surrounding Jesus. This is what's left of that group. On the right hand of Jesus is Mary, his mother. On the left hand of Jesus is John the Baptist, who was a precursor, someone who came before, a prophet who came before Jesus. These two figures act as intercessors for us. So if we have a problem, we can go to them and they can actually talk to Jesus for us. This is from Hagia Sophia, and it is one of the best examples of mosaics that survive from there. I would like you to look at the Smart History video on this, but for just a second, I would also like you to see the fine work and the details that our artists have been able to create. This is a closer look. Typical of Byzantine skill, they're using really tiny tesserae. And tesserae is a word you're going to hear on the Smart History video. A tesserae in general refer to tiny pieces of glass or marble, anything that you put into a mosaic to construct it. So basically that single word means the pieces. And again, you can think of something like putting a puzzle together and all of the individual pieces that go to make up the whole. These were carefully arranged, and some of them actually had gold in them. Gold cubes were sometimes used, or if we're dealing with glass, a piece of gold foil might have been placed under it, but it was intended to maximize the amount of glitter that was going to appear. In other words, to make these as shiny, otherworldly, and wondrous as possible. And our textbook does discuss these images in terms of the viewer looking in awe at them, almost as if seeing into the world of the heavens. To maximize this, the artists actually set these little pieces at angles to each other in order to capture the maximum amount of light. If you get a good look at the surface, you're going to be able to see that the surface, the little tesserae, are not flat. They are not evenly placed next to each other. In other words, our artists really knew what they were doing to create an image that would look spiritual and that would look otherworldly. The detail that I have, and I am hoping you can see it well, creates spiraling shapes that are gold, and these radiate from the area around Jesus. And that, I think, was intended to give a heavenly glow. This is the best detail I could get to put into PowerPoint. I simply want you to see how skilled the Byzantine mosaic artists were. They could take tiny little pieces and actually not only create lights and darks, so we get value changes, we get shadow. Look here around the nose, for example. But I'd also like you to see the way they're actually shaping the area of the face. They're creating a curved area under the eye and flipping around in another direction, the curved area of a cheekbone. This, folks, is about as good as a mosaic can get. Please also look at the Smart History video on Hagia Sophia, the great early 6th century Christian church of Justinian, which still stands in Istanbul today. This church is the location for the image I just showed, the mosaics of Jesus along with Mary and John. So it was once upon a time covered with mosaics. This grand interior also fits the desire of Byzantine creations, being luxurious but also very remote and very, very mystical. We will also see it again for its influence on Islamic architecture in Turkey, particularly under the Ottomans.